Hey guys, it's Matt here. I decided that rather than trying to put together a written uh, style guide where I'll probably forget to add something, I figured I'd just demonstrate how I would clean up Blobby in real time, and then I can share, the pressure sensitivity. And I actually have a color palette for Blobby that I will make available in one of the share folders for you guys to go ahead and download, just so all of the colors can be cohesive. So, I did this little rough sketch of Blobby in Photoshop real quick and imported it into Toon Boom, and I will use that as the basis for cleaning up Blobby. So first things first, I have the outline selected. It's a very top of the color palette for Blobby. I'm just going with the regular pencil setting, put at 12. The thickness is of 12. I believe that's the best way to go. And you can, if you have, I'm assuming all of you have pressure sensitivity, so you can use thinner lines when he's farther away. But I feel like that'll be the best way to go for him. I would imagine if you have a super up close shot, you might be able to go up to 15, just to see how it feels. I think one would probably be able to tell if it's 15 is way too thick for an up close. But I think for most purposes, 12 would be a good pen size. So I will put outline thickness 12. So there's that. And so I will go ahead and show you guys how I clean Blobby up. And there is actually one thing that I want to point out in his design that I don't know how many of you have started cleaning up or anything like that yet, but I do want to point out right here that there isn't actually any distinctive outline between his base color here and I'm gonna call it his hood or his helmet, whatever you want to call it. There is actually no outline, no distinctive outline right there other than his cheek at the bottom. And I don't know how much it's gonna throw you guys in a loop to do that, to achieve that, so I will show you how I do it. And I'm not a master of cleanup or anything like that. This is just something I figured out while I was cleaning up the balloon test. So, the first thing I do when I go to outline is I actually choose the base color selection first, and I just get as close to his head as I can within reason. And I actually follow, there's like a little line that I did right here showing where his head connects to the helmet, and so I actually follow that right up until here. That should be fine. Oh, by the way, and I may or may not have forgotten to do. Nope, I remember to do it right here for the auto flatten. Make sure auto flatten is selected when you clean up. I should have mentioned that earlier. So I put that line in right there, and now I'm gonna go into the actual outline color, and I'll go ahead and start outlining him. I may be silent for a little while, and I may see if I can speed this up in Premiere or something like that, so you guys don't have to suffer through this. So yeah, actually one note I want to make, just like I said before, at the bottom, his cheek right here, this is where his cheek is. That'll actually connect to where we put this blue line right here. So that makes up the frame of his face. I should probably, once I get done outlining, I'll actually make a couple more options in the color palette for the inside of his mouth before I forget to do that. Just whenever you are cleaning up, make sure you try to be as loose as possible. He is a slime creature. Implied that slime is coming off of him, so he's very organic. So we don't want a bunch of like super sharp angular lines when you're cleaning up. When you clean up the sleeve, his sleeves, quote unquote, you don't actually want to do this. Because his sleeves are actually his arms. So you'll actually just make this sort of line. It kind of implies that there are sleeves, but we're not actually like going in and choosing a completely different color for his insides, because it makes the design simpler and nobody wants to see his organs or whatever it is that's in there. So let's see what else I can add. Just make sure that you do have actually bits of slime coming off of him as he, like if you do any animation that has him lifting up, you should have some slime at like the bottom of his arms, or the bottom, like his base right here. Just like one or two little bits of slime, just to, you know, keep the illusion that he is a slime guy. The only real solid bits of him, honestly, should be his tail and the little tail thing at the back of his head. And even those can, you know, they can stretch and squash as need be. So I believe that is it for the actual cleanup. Looking real good there. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into coloring, and first things first, I'm going to go to his head and show you why I did this first line, and hopefully it'll cooperate with me. It's not going to. So maybe some of you guys know how to do this a little bit better than I do, but I have a problem. I personally have a problem where the lines won't connect all the way, and it keeps me from filling in the way I want to, like right away, real quick. I can usually get around it by just going in and connecting the dots, and that'll normally solve the problem. So I would say just ignore this for a second while I try to work through that. I think I actually got it good to go. Apparently I don't. Bear with me. I may just have to cut this until I actually get it right. Finally. Okay. So the reason I created this line the way I did, first things first, is because rather than having to do a bunch of annoying erasing, which, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to drag this down here because that's actually where the hair should be connected. Fill that in like so, and then fill in the hair like so at the base, and the outline is flush with his skin color, like right there. Just be careful of like the really like small places where you have to zoom in like 500%. Okay, so here again, I'll just do that. That'll solve that problem. Usually, if you have a problem where like a small little bit is disconnected, you can actually use this tool to go into the outline. And I need to find it again. And you can actually manipulate that like so, with little to no damage to your outline. There we go. If you have any major issues with anything like that, let me know. Or maybe if you have a better workaround that works better, definitely let me know also. I am not a perfect creature and am definitely down to learn if something works a little bit better. So back to this. I'm just going to finish filling in the base colors. Okay, I messed up somewhere there also. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. So I'm just going to find where I messed up again. I don't have the dots connected all the way. Somewhere. Possibly down here. I personally just kind of do this by ear. I just try to go in, and if I can't find like the obvious culprit to where something should be connected but it's not. Ugh, that looks ugly. If there isn't an obvious culprit where something is obviously not connected the way it needs to be, I just go in and manipulate the anchor points at all of like the possible edges to try to get everything nice and closed up. So let's see how much better I'm doing. I am not doing a lot better. Is it? I apologize, I'm gonna have a couple of moments like this where I try to figure out what the heck is happening. Oh, there it is. Usually it's, I will say it's the least obvious culprit, so just zoom out as much as you can, and you may just have to do some digging to find where the anchor points aren't connecting quite right. It's usually the very least obvious culprit. So, bam, there we go. Looking fresh, looking good. Let's see. We got a helmet color where we're filling that in right there. And that is actually his base color. We did that. If all works out perfectly, then it should be a nice fit. It should be a nice quick cleanup process. Maybe 2 minutes at the most. I have no idea how long I took to do that with reconnecting all the lines. I digress though. Speaking of eyes, we're going to go right into that. Nice and quick. The iris is a yellow, so we're just gonna fill in that part. Watch out. If you draw if you clean up like I do, you'll end up having this little weirdness right here, where all of his eye won't fill in quite right. So just make sure you don't have that. And it may end up where you have the weirdness and you fill it in and it actually floods this also. That's, again, when you have to go back and make sure all of the anchor points are connected and make sure all of the lines are closed up. So it should look like this before you actually go back into the outline color and you fill in his eyes like so. Because for Blobby, there is actually no black outline. There should be no black outline anywhere. To that end, actually, I need to give him a tongue since his mouth is open. Hopefully I didn't mess that up. So now I'm going to go ahead and add mouth color, which I'm just kind of going to go by eye for this. Call that inside mouth. And something more red for tongue. I'll go ahead and add a white just in case. I don't know if anybody... Well, Blobby doesn't have teeth. Now I'll just go ahead and remove the white. Sorry, I'm kind of thinking while I'm doing this. I hope it's not horribly distracting. But now we have a complete color guide, color palette, which, like I said, I'll add in the one of the group chats or something a little later on, probably after I do this. Whoops. Bear with me just a second. There we go. Alright, and now, real quick, I'll color in the why is it not working the way I want to? There we go. If you're having technical difficulty like apparently I just had, I just used my mouse to fill that in. Okay, we seem to be good to go again. So that is actually how we're going to base clean up Blobby. It doesn't take very long, as long as, you know, all goes well and you don't have to do a bunch of anchor point manipulation. But just for funsies, I do have a highlight and shadow. If we do find out that we have extra time to do that, I'll go ahead and go over how I do his highlight and shadows. It's actually not all that much. So first I'm going to go into the highlight, where I'm going to just fill in, like, if you have a space with just like a bunch of empty color, that is the best place for a highlight. So kind of like there and there is going to be your best place. Let's see how that looks real quick. Yeah, that looks alright for that particular situation. Don't go too overboard with your highlights and shadows, because that's not going to be easy on the eyes. Nobody's going to want to look at that for a long time. Just kind of think of them as a bubble almost when you're doing the highlights and shadows, to where like you have some obvious points where there should be highlights, like kind of like the corner, his corners, quote unquote, is how I think of it. I'll consider that a corner. Kind of use your best judgment, but make sure that when you do this, you're consistent throughout your scene on where you put his highlights and shadows, because we don't need a bunch of like random highlights and random shadows popping in and out. That's gonna look real bad. So now to the shadows. That is where I would put his shadows in this situation. One more obvious note, when you're putting in highlights and shadows, make sure you know where... Oh, what happened? Make sure you know... What the heck? I'm having some technical difficulty again. It does not want me to put this shadow. I'm just going to skip that. Just pretend like I put a shadow in there, because clearly it doesn't want me to. That's another place I would put a shadow. I don't know why it doesn't want me to do that. But like I was saying, just whenever you put in highlights and shadows, make sure you know where the light is hitting Blobby. Because if... I'll add this here. If you got light hitting them from this corner, like I'm kind of implying, you don't want highlights coming from this side. This is kind of the no highlight zone at that point. Like, this is where you want highlights, not here. Lights. No highlights. And this would be a better place for shadow, so actually rather than putting that and insulting your guys' intelligence, or not to insult your guys' intelligence, as I should say, this is kind of the better area for where you put your shadows. So highlights, shadows, and obviously as you rotate that, you're kind of going to have a reverse situation. It all depends on where the light is hitting in your scene. So just use your judgment. If we get to that point, if we run short on time, then we may not even have to worry about all that. But I just wanted to show you guys how I did that. Otherwise, I think I covered everything. Outline thickness 12. I'm going to put the color palette in... I'll probably see if I can just upload it straight to Slack, so you can download it straight from there rather than going through my file. But I will put it on my file also as a backup. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any difficulty with any of this, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I will try to clarify as much as I can. Alright guys, thank you very much.